G'day, my name is Bill, these are the bots, and welcome to the video. Today we're taking a look at the Wreck and Doom Collection Carnivac and Fisitron 2-pack. So, with each new year of Generations has come an Amazon exclusive subline, from Galactic Odyssey to Wreckers to IDW Comics. Each year has had somewhat of a theme, and this year with Age of the Primes is no different. And this year's theme is combining two of the previous themes, Wreckers and Doom and Destruction, to make the Wreck and Doom Collection, giving us 3 2-pack versus sets of Wreckers and Mayhem Attack Squad members. Diaclone Topspin vs Marvel Comics Spinster, Redecoed Slugslinger vs Cartoon Sandstorm, and finally this set, Carnivac vs Fisitron. Now starting off, this set is the only one I had any interest in this time round, as I already have the better deco of Topspin and Spinster, and I already bought the Times Return Slugslinger on the aftermarket a few years back, and that was a bit expensive. I would have been interested in the Sandstorm, but unfortunately they didn't bother to fix the chest, which was the entire reason I passed on the original version. Also because I'm desperately still trying to hunt down a thrilling 30 Sandstorm in all his IDW glory. But this set I was really interested in, as Fisitron, or Iron Fist as he's known in this house, is one of my favourite characters from one of my favourite pieces of media ever, Last Stand of the Wreckers, and also a retool of the elusive Earth Mode Hound. And also Carnivac, who's a retool of the really awesome Times Return Weirdwolf, as well as being a late G1 Nobody Decepticon, which gives him a special place in my heart. Speaking of Carnivac, let's start with him. So Carnivac here is based off his appearance in G1, in which he was a Beast Pretender, which was like a regular Pretender, but instead of the shell being a person or a monster, it was an animal, and then there was a little guy inside that turned into a robot and an animal. And this figure here has deviated from the modern Pretender update formula, which is to base the new toy off the old toy's Pretender shell like Bludgeon and Skullgrin, but with this guy they have instead based the new toy off the inner robot because it wouldn't make much sense to do it for the outer shell. They also did this for Metalhawk because no one wants a toy of that. And this toy being a retool of Times Return Werewolf means he automatically has a special place in my heart, as that was one of the first figures I got when I first got into collecting, all the way back in 2016. But if you know anything about that toy, you know there was a very bad case of clear plastic, with the Headmaster cockpit hinge snapping on a lot of copies. Let me rephrase that, all copies. But it is fixed here, as the hinge is now cast in a solid plastic, so we can all breathe a sigh of relief. Starting off, the paint and plastics on this guy are quite good, even despite there not being a lot of paint. It's just really the gold on the chest and shins along with a bit on the wolf's head, and the blue parts on the shoulders are separate pieces that have been inserted there, at least from what I can tell. They were the same on Weirdwolf, so I don't see why they'd be any different here. And these colours, man, they are just brilliant, with the deep greenish blue, the crisp gold and vibrant purple. It's just an all-out assault on your eyeballs. I love it. The sculpting on this guy is very cool, with all the greebling and vents all over this figure. It's very War for Cybertron on a pre-War for Cybertron figure. He also has a very crisp Receptor badge, straight square front on his chest. That head sculpt is very neat with the purple helmet and silvery blue face, and the evil smirk. Also, being this was once upon a time a Times Return figure, the head can come off and turn into a little bloke. This is Carnivac's Headmaster. No, sorry, Titan Master. Survivor. And the funny thing is, he's better painted than 80% of the Titan Masters from actual Titan's Return, which is a bit mind-blowing, I must say. His articulation is a bit limited, with him being a pre-War for Cybertron figure, with his ball joints and his moulded in place hands, but he does have bicep swivels, which is always appreciated. He does technically have a waist swivel, but unfortunately it's made redundant by the wolf butt flap, which stops it from doing a full 360. For accessories, Carnivac comes with 2 whole new accessories, an entirely new gun, which is miles better than Weirdwolf's bathtub cannon, although strangely it's cast in purple plastic and painted gold, which is always fun. And it's really thick paint too, which is good, I guess. But it's also based off the G1 toy, so that's a bonus. He also has an entirely new sword, which compared to Weirdwolf's sword is more of a dagger, but this too is also cast in purple plastic, and painted really thick. For size comparisons, here's Carnivac with his mold mate, Times Return Weirdwolf, fellow Pretender, Legacy Evolution Metalhawk, SS86 Bone Crusher, Age of the Primes Sidewaves. Now, let's take a look at Iron Fist. So this is Age of the Primes Fisitron. Now about that name. This character in G1 was called Iron Fist, but obviously there is a much more famous character now using that name, so Hasbro instead decided to use the name Fisitron, which comes from the IDW comic Last Stand of the Wreckers, in which Iron Fist was a part of the new recruits into the Wreckers, along with his fellow late G1 nobodies, Rotorstorm, Pyro, and Guzzle, who all showed up with a boatload of personality and charisma, only to be killed off in horrific ways, except for Guzzle. Iron Fist in the comic was a Wreckers superfan who even had an online codename that he used when he was trying to obtain classified Wreckers data for his blog. Yes, he had a blog, and Fisitron was his codename. So back to the toy. As previously stated, he is a retool of the Earth Mode Hound, which itself is a retool of the Siege Hound, which doesn't really make sense, and here's why. This toy is more so coloured to match his IDW appearance. And I hear what you're saying. No, Bill, he's based off his G1 toy. And well, no he ain't for starters. The carpets are all the wrong colour, being grey instead of the G1 toy's tan. And also he has blue eyes, whereas the G1 toy had red eyes. Now, who has grey carpets and blue eyes? IDW Iron Fist. But even then, the blue on IDW Iron Fist is much lighter than the blue on this toy, which matches the blue on the G1 toy. And if he's going to be based off the IDW version, he really should have had a Cybertronian alt mode, which is why he should have been a Siege Hound retool. I don't know why I'm complaining about this. This is probably going to be the closest I'm ever going to get to owning the Earth Mode Hound. The paint and plastic on this guy are okay. There really isn't any paint on him other than the feet and the crotch. But the main problem is just how thin some of this plastic feels, especially in the legs, which they are so thin they might as well be made of paper. And every time I transform him, I'm worried that it's going to snap. Reminds me of another hound. Also, the chest piece, aka the front of the truck mode, feels a little thin. Not as bad as the legs, but still not great. And the arms feel very dense though, just like on the Siege one. I only make a big deal out of this because the Siege version of Hound felt really dense all over, and I was not afraid of anything snapping. The actual colours on this guy are really good, with the popping orange contrasting well with the deep blue and gunmetal grey, and it's overall a very aesthetically pleasing colour scheme. Now, as he's a retool of the awesome Siege Mode Hound, he can pose very well, with his 90-degree ankle tilts, wrist swivels, and even some intentional butterfly joints. At least I think they're intentional. Might not be. That head sculpt is awesome. It looks exactly like Iron Fist as he was drawn in the last Stand of the Wreckers, apart from his bullet brain injury, if you know, you know. It's also beautifully painted, with the silver face paint and the bright bluish grey eyes. The only problem I have with it is just too small. His head-to-torso ratio is all out of whack. His head should definitely be bigger. For accessories, Iron Fist comes with 3 pieces that combine to form his iconic backpack. And no, it's not kibble, it's part of his design. For size comparisons, here is Iron Fist with Siege Hound, Gen Select's Rotorstorm, Legacy Cosmos, Age of the Prime's Excellion, Age of the Prime's Alchemist Prime. Before moving on to transformation, I just wanted to bring up the topic of mold degradation. For those of you that don't know, mold degradation is when a mold has been used so much that it starts to degrade over time. See, sideswipe! Sorry, what? But these two are relatively fine considering the age of the molds, with it only being some tolerances on Carnivac and the shin pieces don't really want to peg in properly. The arm covers for the transformation like to pop off too easily. Well, they did fix the cockpit, so you have to give them that one. Now with Iron Fist being a retool of Siege Hound, which was about 5 versions so far, and you can kinda tell, with just how rickety and delicate the legs are, also the wheels and how they feel they may snap under not too much pressure at all, and also how much thinner the figure feels overall. But I don't think that's just mold degradation, I think it's also the plastic that they have used on this version. It's very different than the original Hound, and I don't have the other 2 versions of the Earth mode to compare, so I can't really tell. On to transformation. Transformation is messy. Carnivac should be simple, as are most beast formers, in that he just pops down on all fours, but in practice it's just a bit messy. Getting all the legs, especially back ones, is really fidgety, and trying to make them look good is a bit difficult. But the wolf mode you're left with is a relatively nice one, and the colours continue to stand out on this mode. Although I will say they didn't bother to paint the toenails. I only bring this up as the Titans Return Weirdwolf had painted toenails, and that figure is from almost a decade ago. But something that is new in this mode is the wolf head, which is very nice. It's the same as Weirdwolf's, all chunky and blocky. It has an opening mouth, and the teeth are painted silver, unlike on Weirdwolf's, whose mouth was cast in translucent red plastic and looks like he's been feasting on the flesh of his enemies. His eyes are also painted silver, along with his giant eyebrow. The main gimmick of this mode is that you can come to the back here, and you can flip up the canopy and plop in little old Survivor. And he can sit in the wolf's belly, presumably for piloting it, or just tag along for the road trip. For weapon storage, his sword becomes the tail of the wolf, which is a little bit of parts forming, but I mean, it's G1 Weirdwolf, isn't it? And the gun can plug into one of the many weapon ports, but I like to put it behind his head like a giant behind-the-head bazooka. For size comparisons, here is Carnivac with Weirdwolf, Metal Hawk, Bone Crusher, and Sideways. Now, Iron Fist here turns into an armoured SUV, and I've got to say it actually looks very nice with the Earth Mode bonnet and the wheels, although the feet on the side break the illusion, especially as they are blue whereas the rest of the car is grey. And from the side on you can very clearly see the arms just hanging out of the bottom of the car. He does roll, as all rolling things should. For weapon storage you can plug the backpack on top of the car for accuracy's sake, just like in the comic, and the G1 toy technically. It does have a Wreckers logo on the side of the vehicle and an auto badge on the hood, which is really tiny. I kind of would have preferred no Wreckers badge and a bigger Autobot logo. For size comparisons, here's Iron Fist with Siege Hound, Gen Selects Rotorstorm, Legacy Cosmos, Age of the Primes Excellion, and Age of the Primes Alchemist Prime. These guys work really well as an overall package, and both offer something unique, with Carnivac being the only repaint of Weirdwolf that's not Weirdwolf, and also being a near decade-old mould, and Iron Fist being a reworking of the elusive Earth Mode Hound, which was a reworking of the much well-praised Siege Hound, and for being the easiest way to get the version of that Earth Mode, and also to add to the IDW Wreckers shelf along with Rotorstorm. Now come on Hasbro, Age of the Primes, Pyro and Guzzle when? So I've been Bill, these are the bots, until next time, have a good one.